Good evening, everyone. This is the Town of Brunswick Planning Board regular meeting for July 15th, 2021. If everybody please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, our agenda this evening, as it was posted on the town website and on the town board, is as follows. Number one, Harbor Freight Tools site plan. The applicant seeks to construct an approximately 15,000 square foot retail building and parking lot on property located at 841, is that correct now? 841 is or 841?
I think that's the number, correct?
Okay. Brunswick Road. TNKY Troy LLC is the applicant. Number two, LaPora, waiver of subdivision. Applicant seeks a lot line adjustment to transfer 1.2 acres from 486 Brunswick Road to 494 Brunswick Road. Vincent LaPera is the applicant. Number three, Lord Avenue property, site plan and minor subdivision. Applicant seeks site plan approval for a 50,000 square foot supermarket building, loading dock area, parking, stormwater facilities on property located on Lord Avenue. Applicant also proposes a road realignment on Lord Avenue. And this is Lord Avenue Property LLC is the applicant. Our first part of our meeting is the review and approval of the minutes for July 1st, 2021. Has everyone had an opportunity to read those, review them? Are there any comments, additions, corrections? Okay, hearing none, I will make a motion to accept the minutes as they've been submitted.
I'll second that.
There's a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Okay, first on our agenda is the Harbor Freight Tools site plan. Yes, you have to speak in the mic.
Hi guys, I'm Anna Rader with EDP. I'm here representing TNKY Troy LLC.
Yes, please start over. Thank
Okay.
you.
I'm Anna Rader with Environmental Design Partnership. I'm here representing TNKY Troy LLC and their Harbor Freight Tools project off of Hoosick Road.
Yeah.
Just to review what we're asking from the board, we're looking for from you the consolidation of two lots. This lot and that lot. We're also looking for a lot line adjustment over here on the east side to allow the B&W property to have access on their own property and not on ours. And we are also looking for a site plan review from you. Updates from last time, we've updated the planting plan per your request. We've also gone through the TDE comments and responded to all of them. That should have been in your last package that you received. I think July 1st it was sent out. And we have also moved the sidewalk per your request here so that it attaches to Hoosick Road.
Okay. There was a review, a comment list that did you get a new copy of the drawings and everything?
I did get the response to comments.
Okay.
Yes. And we've actually gone through them and I've drafted up a response letter. There are only a few minor comments that they need to address to fully address our comments.
I think I followed that. Thank you.
A lot of addressing going.
You're going to respond to our response and then we'll respond to that. Yeah.
Okay.
The comments are pretty minor. They've addressed the comments of the EAF, so that's all set. The stormwater narrative, they've addressed all those comments. The SWIP is acceptable the way that they've addressed those comments, so we're all set with the SWIP. There's a few minor items on the site plans, mostly labeling things. We take issue with the spacing of the bollards. The bioretention area will require a planting plan. Similar to the details you had for the ponds.
Okay.
There's one comment on the soil mix for the bioretention area. You proposed a gravel layer instead of mulch. And that just needs to be justified in the SWIP and the stormwater narrative. If you are using gravel in the bioretention area, we just need to know what type and size of gravel and ensure that any plantings used in that area can prosper in the gravel instead of the mulch.
Okay, we'll add that to the detail.
And I have this in writing, it's in a draft form, I'll get it out to them probably tomorrow.
Okay. Just to review, I think at our last meeting, we received samples of the outside exterior finish, and we were satisfied that they would be acceptable for what we were
Light
looking
enough gray.
for. At this point, I know we talked at the last meeting about scheduling a public hearing possibly for the next meeting, which is a 3-week
Mhm.
period between. The question I have for Wayne at this point is there enough information that we can present to the public to have a public hearing? Is it
Yeah, the site plans are
complete enough?
complete enough, and any changes are minor, mostly in the details on the site plan.
Okay,
They've added the sidewalk, all the elements of the site plan are there.
okay. Andy, you wish to make any comments on this?
Nope, it appears that technical review determines the application is complete enough for public hearing. And so procedurally, it's ready for public hearing if the board chooses to go forward.
Okay, now I'll ask the board, is there any other questions for the
I have a
applicant?
question. This area in green, how large is that? Is that like 3 acres, 5 acres? What is that?
Most of this area in the green is part of lot 2, which is 5.1 acres. So I imagine the area in dark green is probably 4.5.
And you don't have any plans for that? That's just going to remain?
Yeah, that
Buffer.
area is going to remain undeveloped for this project.
Yeah, that's the wetland area with the buffer, correct?
Yes, yeah. So this hatching here is all New York State DEC wetlands, and the hatching is 100-foot buffer off that. So we've moved as far out of that as we can. And I believe in the previous site plan, some of the ponds and the bioretention areas were a little bit in the 100-foot buffer. So we've updated those to move them as far out as we can.
Anyone else have any questions? The only question I have is, did we get a response back from Brunswick County yet? Or is that still?
I believe we. Huh? Don't want to speak to.
I don't think we did. I don't,
From the regional planning committee?
Yeah.
No, we didn't send it down until it was ready for site.
That's right. So it'll go
It's gonna go
down
down tomorrow.
now.
One thing we didn't receive is anything from the DOT regarding lead agency for secret. That, so we didn't receive anything from the DOT, which is understandable, was normal.
okay.
So
Does that lead agency status jeopardize our
No,
public hearing?
No, not at all. In fact, one thing you can do tonight, if you choose to, the 30 days have elapsed since we circulated the lead agency coordination. You've not been notified by any other involved agency that they object to this board being lead agency. You could declare yourselves lead agency tonight. It's a procedural step that has to be completed, but it doesn't affect scheduling your public hearing.
Okay. Well, unless there's some reason why we shouldn't do that, I think we ought to declare lead agency right now.
Hmm.
So I will entertain a motion to,
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
is there any further discussion on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? So we are now officially the lead agency. In regard to the public hearing, I had just previously stated that there was 3 weeks between this meeting and our next meeting, which is adequate time to notice the public hearing. So unless anybody has any objections to having a meeting at the public hearing on the 5th of August, I will say that we will schedule the public hearing on the 5th of August, 7 o'clock. You'll be first on the agenda.
Okay.
All right. Do you have any other questions for us?
I don't think so. Are you prepared to, I guess, to go through the motions of a negative declaration if you see fit at the public hearing or beforehand?
Generally, the practice of this board has been see if there's public comment received, including any comments on potential environmental impacts, and address seeker
Okay.
following the close of the public hearing.
Anybody have any other questions for the applicant?
No.
Then I think we're all set. We'll
Thank
see you
you.
on the 5th. Okay. Okay, second on our agenda is La Pera waiver of subdivision.
Good evening.
How are you tonight?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I assume that you are Vince. You have to state your name and address for the record.
Vincent LaPera, 494 Brunswick Road.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we had an issue on the last meeting about identifying abandoned, I guess it is, or unused septic systems on the property. Were you able to identify exactly where those are?
Yes. There were 2 septic systems. There was one for the house that was demolished. We opened that to prepare it for pumping, and we found that it was cracked. The concrete tank was cracked. There wasn't enough material left in the tank to pump. So we broke out the side and we filled it with slurry sand.
I'm sorry, you filled it with what?
Slurry sand.
Okay.
Which is the recommended way to decommission a tank. There was also a trailer that's been gone for years, but there was a trailer in the rear part of the lot that I believe Phil Harrington told me that trailer was approved in the 1940s as a special use something. And we did find a steel septic tank. We found it because the tractor fell in it and it collapsed. Had not been used for years, obviously. And it was completely rusted out. Again, there was nothing there to pump. So I had the excavator excavate all around it just to explore it and crush the side and then slurry what was left with sand. So it would be solid. So we decommissioned both tanks.
Okay. Does that have to be, is there any record on, that has to be made with Brunswick County Health Department on that or anything like that, or?
I'll defer to Wayne on that.
The way I understand it is that they give you direction, but I don't think they ever ask for anything in writing back. Yeah,
So now it's considered just,
yeah.
Okay.
It's decommissioned, it doesn't exist, so
okay,
it won't have, doesn't usually ask for any record.
okay, now if I were, moving forward here, was there another waiver of subdivision on these properties within the last 7 years?
Is there another what?
Did you have another waiver of subdivision? Did you have another lot line adjustment or something?
I did have another lot line adjustment a few years ago
Okay,
to the south of my property.
okay,
Annexing that. It is shown on the map. So the piece of land toward the Pinewood side,
yes, okay,
you can see the old lot line is dashed.
yep,
And that 3/4 of an acre was added to my property.
for all practical purposes, that was landlocked anyway, correct?
Yes, it
So
was landlocked, it was scrub.
it couldn't be a building lot,
There's no access to it.
yeah, okay. Now you want to move your lot line 26 feet, is that correct?
22.34 feet on the south side and 21.78 feet on the north side. It's a narrow strip that's shown on the map.
Okay. Now you will have the lot now that you have for your house, and then you'll have this other lot here that I know you put a lot of work into it, you've cleared it out and everything like that. Do you intend to sell that lot?
Yes.
Okay.
I can't afford to keep it.
All right. Now, we had some discussion about this today as far as within 7 years, we have a condition that we would not entertain another waiver within 7 years. However, we do have a distinction between subdividing a lot and a lot line adjustment. And if there's no added creation of another lot, that would be a buildable lot, which this does not. And a lot line adjustment we can reconsider that as strictly a lot line adjustment and not technically a waiver of a subdivision where you would be creating another lot. Did everybody follow that? Does anybody have a problem with proceeding with strictly viewing this as a lot line adjustment?
No, I don't have an issue with that.
Does anybody have any questions on this? Is it clear on what's going to happen here?
If you're curious about why I want to add this little strip,
Well, I wasn't going to go there, but since you,
I'm happy to answer the question.
okay,
If you look at the map, I don't know if you can see it, but there's my vegetable garden is shown adjacent to that strip.
okay.
That rectangular area there.
I've already started to create a small orchard. Not a big orchard, just a few trees. I've got 2 peach trees and 2 pear trees right now.
Okay.
Barbara and I want to put in a few apple trees, maybe 3 or 4. And we've looked at the proper spacing and location with respect to the sun and with respect to the roots invading the vegetable garden. So we need that little extra strip to maintain the distances so the roots don't invade the garden and the trees can be healthy.
Okay,
There's a reason.
that works for me. All right, then, we could proceed along if there's no other questions. First, I'll entertain a NADAC on this.
I'll make a neg.
Do I have a second?
I'll say,
Is there any further discussion on that? All those in favor? Any opposed? Now on the approval for the waiver, do I have a motion to that?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? You're all set.
Thank you. Procedural question. Do you issue a stamp for the drawing so I can file it with the courthouse, or what do I get?
The drawings will be stamped. In fact, if you want,
If you guys don't want.
Sure.
we'll use these drawings. Because I believe that these have been stamped by Rob Michaels, haven't they?
Yeah.
Okay. We can have these stamped in the building department office. And then they can be signed for you to submit to the county.
Thank you.
You
Okay,
need a copy of the deed for the,
Right, generally what happens is the map will be filed. I think in the past, we've said file a copy of the deed. This won't maintain itself. You probably did this previously with your lot line adjustment. You're ultimately going to merge it into one deed, I presume.
Yes.
Generally, either you file the deed of merger with the building department, or recently you've been saying, file the copy of the recorded map with the
Yeah.
building department, just to make sure it's on record here.
I will be doing that. Yeah.
So we take one. I will take your copy and you take your stamp as well.
Okay. Thank you.
okay, thank you. Okay. Number 3 on our agenda tonight is the Lord Avenue property site plan and minor subdivision.
Good evening, Walt Pittman, MJ Engineering, represent the applicant, Lord Avenue Properties LLC. We're here tonight to go over the comment response that we provided regarding the public hearing that was held on June 17th. Just want to flip through this quickly. There's 3 major topics, I would say, was traffic, lighting, and drainage, along with some other minor stuff. So I would like to go through some of them, and Elena is here to discuss the traffic aspect of it. We did also include, as you see on the first page, some construction questions that came up. It was the estimated of 70 trucks for 8 weeks between 7 and 3:30. We did show a truck route drawing in that package where the vehicles will be coming from, RJ Valente and Troy Sand and Gravel, using Route 40 and Route 142, always making a right into the site, a right coming in or a right exiting.
I have a question about that. You're referring to the truck traffic during the construction process. What about after the market's up and running and we have tractor trailers delivering product to the store.
Once
They
the
also
tractor
gonna
trailers would
be-
be running, most likely the traffic signal would be up and operational for the product across the street. So making a left out of Lord Avenue wouldn't be as big as an issue as the construction vehicles. That was the concern with trying to make lefts out of Lord Avenue or making lefts onto Lord Avenue. Here, it'll always be a right in and a right out.
Is it, I don't know if I'm overstepping here. Would it be possible to put up some signage so that the trucks are required to go look from the market up Lord Avenue to Hoosick Street and not go through the residential neighborhood?
You could, I wouldn't even think that that would even be an option for a Hannaford
Well,
truck
we
to
don't know what the
even
Hannaford drivers are gonna
go
do.
that route. But that is something that certainly can be mentioned to Hannaford. Yeah.
I think that might be addressed in the traffic study and some of the mitigating circumstances that we'd have to look at as far as signage in that area, weight limits, so forth and so on, truck traffic. But, all right. You okay?
Another item real quick, that contractor will be responsible for dust control during construction, using a water trough, cleaning Lord Avenue, cleaning the streets. Other thing I'll discuss with the board here, also, we are on the agenda for Monday's ZBA meeting to also discuss the lighting comments with the ZBA. So I just briefly wanted to go through this with you. One change that we made in the back here, closest to the property lines, to the Otsego neighborhood, there was 3 light poles in the back. Those have been eliminated. Also, we did a cross section so you can kind of see the height of the poles versus the heights of the neighborhood. The parking lot is at elevation 412. So plus 21 feet, you're at 433. So our site is recessed. Lord Avenue is about 424. So now you're at 424, top of lights at 433. You're seeing a 9-foot elevation difference compared to if this site was level with Lord Avenue, then you would see the full 21 feet. Also, all pole fixtures and all building mountain fixtures are dark sky with shields, so that all light will be directed downward. Same thing with this neighborhood, elevations vary from 417 to 436. So they'll see the heights of the poles anywhere between 3 feet and 17 feet, which, the height of the poles is by code is 15 feet. So the visibility from the neighbors looking, if you drew a line from where they're standing, would be pretty close to what the town standard is of 15 feet. I will leave the traffic, a lot of traffic, additional lighting comments, traffic and lighting, a lot of repeat questions, traffic and lighting. Stormwater, it's been designed to maintain the existing peak flows, from existing to post, detention basin, forebay, infiltration basin, good detention to excess storage here. We're working with the town, also working with the town and Hannaford on the design of that system. So even though that this building parking lot takes away some of the space, it is made up in these adjacent areas. Traffic, stormwater, traffic, stormwater. And one other comment before we get into the traffic that came up, that this parcel is zoned B12 commercial. I know that came up at the public hearing. And within that zone, the supermarket is a permitted use. So I just wanted to mention that as well. I want to turn it over to Elena, and she will go over the traffic information.
Thank you.
Good evening, Alana Moran with VHB. With relation to the traffic and transportation comments, there were mostly the comments related to traffic within the neighborhood, the Genesee Street neighborhood itself, as far as the potential for truck traffic, the potential for increased traffic associated with the traffic signal and or increased traffic associated with the supermarket itself, as well as things like stop sign compliance in the neighborhood, speeding, and those types of things. So in order to address those concerns that were raised, we did a little bit of additional field work and did a count at the intersection of Tucker and Lord Avenue to see kind of what's going on right now as far as, is there really a lot of traffic that might be cutting through the neighborhood currently, just based upon what the neighbors have been stating as far as their personal observations. So during that count, we looked at the morning peak hour 7 to 9, or the morning peak period 7 to 9, and then the evening peak period from 4 to 6 on a weekday. And basically what that found is that turning from Tucker to Lord, like back and forth, that during the morning, there's about 2 cars that make that maneuver. And then during the afternoon peak hour, there's a total of about 17 vehicles that make that maneuver. So one thing to note about that is that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a cut through vehicle. That could certainly be somebody who already lives in the neighborhood and is going, to and from somewhere else, but it's a relatively low volume of traffic making that maneuver. So the other thing that we looked at was stop sign compliance, specifically at the intersection of Genesee and Oneida, where there's an existing 4-way stop. Generally speaking, and probably for those of you who have been in the neighborhood yourselves, people are typically kind of rolling through. And then there are also those folks who don't stop at all, right? So they just kind of go right through. But some of the things observed were that, say, a driver would go directly through the intersection, go 2 houses down and turn into their driveway. So the people that are, not complying with the stop sign are the people that live generally in the neighborhood. I know I've experienced it myself when I've been there. I try to stop all the time when I'm not, but I definitely sometimes do the roll through. And then the other 2 items that were really looked at with regard to the neighborhood concerns were the potential for speeding and also like any type of truck traffic. So we were out there for roughly, 5 hours-ish, right? The morning peak period and then the evening peak period. And then another time just kind of during that afternoon peak to observe, to go through the neighborhood, not just county, but to kind of look at what's going on. From a speeding perspective, there's not a lot of space to actually kind of get up to any type of speed. I know the posted speed in the neighborhood is actually 20 miles per hour. There's not an excessive amount of speeding. It's that the roadways themselves are relatively narrow. Right. And so if you're walking along and someone is traveling at 30 miles per hour, 25 miles per hour, whatever it may be, it just is that feeling of going a little faster. But we did not note any vehicles that were generally excessively speeding through the neighborhood. Similarly to truck traffic, most of what was observed, and there wasn't a lot of it, was say a moving van coming in and, helping somebody move, or say a National Grid truck or a Verizon truck coming through and, doing their type of services that happen in the neighborhood itself. We did not note any tractor trailers or any vehicles of that size in the neighborhood itself. So those, like I said, those were the primary concerns that had been raised by the members of the community, but I'm certainly happy to answer any other questions or provide any additional clarifications as needed.
I have one question initially, and that is regards to the truck traffic. You mentioned moving vans. Are these like U-Haul trucks?
Yeah, more along that line. Yeah.
The only reason I'm bringing that up is I'm not sure exactly what the arrangement is, but I understand that there is a U-Haul, I'm going to say dealer that's using one of the buildings on Duncan Lane and Duncan Farms. Can you verify that, Joe?
Yeah, they have a U-Haul rental facility at Duncan Lake.
And I was talking to a resident on Genesee, and he says the truck traffic that they see is basically the U-Haul trucks, especially like at the end of the day or at the end of a Saturday, that race through to get in before the time limit with a trailing vehicle behind it.
Gotcha.
He's seen that several times. I think that's a separate issue, but I just thought I would mention that and see if you did see actual U-Haul trucks. going through.
So we didn't observe specifically like U-Haul trucks or, but that type of vehicle.
Yeah, but this, what this resident was implying was that this would happen usually like on a Friday night or a Saturday night when the vehicle had to be back at a certain time.
Yeah, and that's not when we were out, because typically for traffic observations for typical peaks, you look at weekdays, kind of Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, because that's more normal.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't be out for a Friday or a Saturday.
I question your use of the term normal. I travel on Hoosick Street quite frequently, and weekend traffic, people who live in the area will do anything to avoid Hoosick Street on the weekend, because the traffic sometimes will back up from Walmart down to Burdette Avenue.
Mhm.
I mean, it's really awful. So normal is a relative term.
It's definitely a relative term, and the reason that I say normal in that aspect is because when we're looking at, say, the trip generation characteristics for the facility, as well as when traffic volumes on adjacent roadways are typically highest, the morning peak, the evening peak, that time period also typically coincides with the highest traffic generation for the site. So for instance, a supermarket, maybe people are on their way home from work and they're stopping and getting that one, from 4 to 6 o'clock, right? Stopping and grabbing their whatever groceries are needed before completing the trip home. The other time it's going to peak at a grocery store, often Sunday right after church, right? So a bunch of people are there Sunday after church, which might be one of your weekend things that you're talking about here for Hoosick, because I know I'm in the corridor, clearly not as often as you all are, but I'm in the corridor a lot too. And you do notice that it's not just a weekday thing. It's that on the weekends, things are backed up too. It's kind of a 7-day-a-week thing, especially for that stretch of the roadway.
Well, you brought up an interesting point about some of the vehicles that you saw through there would go through a stop sign and then turn into a driveway.
Mhm.
I would venture to say that possibly, in particular on the weekends, that traffic you see going through there to avoid Hoosick Street is probably from local residents more than it is from travelers that are maybe out of state or whatever.
Yeah, for sure. And the other part is that, oftentimes when you're in a neighborhood like that, because it does have the opportunity to skip a couple places, a couple of the signals on Hoosick to get out to Lord Ave, but it's still very much a neighborhood. Most of the people who are driving in there, who are traveling in there, live in the neighborhood. Just like in my own neighborhood, most of the people who are driving in that are actually people who live in the neighborhood. So a lot of the people who are not complying are people who live right there. I was leaving today, actually going through that intersection, and as I was coming out of the driveway that I was at, and then got to I backed out and I went toward the stop sign, and someone came right at me without stopping. So there are some compliance things going on specifically at that all-way stop in the neighborhood.
Well, one of the other things that concerns me is the fact that we don't even have a light there yet. And I'm thinking that the impact of that light, regardless of the Hannaford store, I'm just talking about the impact of that light, hasn't really been felt yet. We don't know whether it's really going to, all of a sudden people are going to say, oh, there's that light there. I can get to work now a lot easier by going, down through Fair Park and so forth and so on. And I think then you're going to start to generate a whole different other group of people that are going to start using those residential streets to get to that light. So that's always puzzled me about the traffic studies in this particular case. We're anticipating not just two factors or one factor, we're actually anticipating two. The light that isn't there yet, that's already been approved,
Mhm.
and then the store that comes after the light technically.
Right, there are two things that you're looking at. One, like you said, one of them being the light, and then the second one being
Yeah.
the supermarket itself. So the letter that was dated June 7th gave an estimate based upon the work that was done by Creighton Manning for the county at that intersection. The estimate was that roughly, 10% of the vehicles that are at that intersection right now of North Lake with Fair Park Road, that roughly 10% of the vehicles that are there right now may choose to travel through the neighborhood to get up to the new signal at Lord Avenue, as opposed to continuing the route they currently do, which might be to go direct out to North Lake and Hoosick, or, continuing up around and coming up closer to the Stewarts up here. So 10%, I want to say, was close to like 15 to 25 vehicles during the peak periods, and that at other times of the day, it would be less. Let me actually jump and make sure I have that number correct, because it's in this one as well. Yeah, so the June 7th letter estimates that 15 vehicles during the AM peak hour and 23 vehicles during the PM peak hour may travel through the neighborhood in order to reach that, going to and from that signal that's been approved.
Well, the other issue, and I know you're probably well aware of this, is that the comments made on traffic are, a lot of it is on existing traffic.
Of course.
We have, they're complaining about it now. And, and they had the study with the intersection at Genesee and North Lake Avenue. But I think what we have to do is we have to take all these studies and figure out what the best way is to mitigate some of these circumstances, or at least reduce the traffic, or control it better. Meaning, maybe a one-way street someplace, maybe more stop signs, maybe speed bumps, maybe traffic and other signage for weight limits and so forth and so on.
Yeah, for sure.
So I'm not exactly sure how we want to do this, but we did mention possibly getting an independent group to analyze all these surveys, give us the best approach to address the comments and concerns of the
Of the neighbors themselves. Yeah, I mean, one thing, just as you're going through this process to consider, is that when it comes to a one-way system or anything along those lines, providing speed bumps and those types of features, is that often the people that it inconveniences the most are the people that it was meant to protect, right? So by providing a one-way street on, whether it's, Lord or Duncan or whatever it may be, the residents of that neighborhood are the ones who get inconvenienced if they want to go back and forth to Hannaford or, the new Aldi's or whatever it may be, because they don't have the same freedom that their roadway system used to have. So it's just that there are, it's compromising, right? There's trade-offs that you have to weigh when you're determining what the best approach is going to be.
Yeah. I think if you ask these people, they would probably be more inclined to say enforcement of the existing. But, that's not an option that we can really.
It's, the planning board can't enforce. It's so hard
That's
to hear.
right. So, we talked about possibly getting another consulting firm to evaluate all these traffic studies. Is that?
Right, so I can give you a couple of thoughts on that. So under the town's site plan regulations, the board does have the authority to retain what it deems to be necessary private consultants to review specific issues. The code provides for those costs to be reimbursed by the applicant, that there'd be an estimate for that and an escrow setup. It's designed to address situations like this where there's a lot of comments that have been submitted by concerned residents. Certainly, technical information's been submitted in by the applicant. We have a traffic engineering expert in front of you and engineer for the project. The planning board has its review engineer. But traffic engineering consultation is a specialty. So if the board is inclined to say we'd like to have someone review the reports, synthesize them, give their opinion, discuss potential mitigation measures like we've talked about so that can advise the board and create that record, you have the authority to do that.
You have any additional comments on that, Wayne?
Well, when that was brought up in the last meeting or the meeting before, I had sent a proposal request to our traffic experts in our Westchester office. Phil Greeley is a PhD in traffic. He's an adjunct professor at Westchester Community College and NYU. He's a well-known expert in traffic engineering. You probably know.
Yep,
John Collins and
Yes.
Phil Greeley were partners at one time.
yes.
And down in this southern portion of the state, they're like the go-to traffic experts. So I sent them a request for proposal to get a scope and fee from them to review this. So that is available to the board if they so choose to have them review the information provided by the applicant.
Would it be possible for us to also have the opportunity to review the scope, just to make sure that it's focusing directly on the issues that have been raised by the board and the citizens with regards to the neighborhood? Just because that way it's not becoming a review of, this document, but really only becoming a review of those pertinent issues. We've done that before in other communities. For instance, the town of Half Moon has a process where they prefer to have certainly TDE review, and then they'll also bring other consultants in. But we've been given the opportunity to look at that scope just to make sure that it's not, above and beyond, and it is focusing specifically on what the community is actually concerned about instead of, something like trip generation. Trip generation is trip generation. We've all seen that, but focus more on what can be done in the neighborhood and that type of thing.
I don't have a problem with that, to be honest with you.
Good evening. I'd like to address the board. My name is Rich Rose and the applicant with Lord Avenue Properties. I've done probably a dozen supermarkets with Phil Greeley from Westchester County all the way up through the mid-Hudson Valley. I hired him representing me as the applicant to be my traffic engineer. He's very qualified. I have no problems with Phil Greeley at all as a selection. My issue would be from a timing standpoint and how it would affect the approval process, because winter is coming, and every month that I lose between now and the winter time puts me into winter conditions, and having to do trucking and the gravel pits freeze and you can't do compaction and lifts and stuff like that. My only issue would be, how could we work together to expedite this quickly so it wouldn't delay the potential of the review process?
Can I speak directly?
Absolutely.
Colliers does have a proposal. It is a scope of services. There's an estimate of, what is that, Wayne?
$5,500.
If that's deposited with the town, Colliers gets working right away on the traffic. And we could, you tell me, the turnaround time on reviewing the current submissions by the traffic engineer with some information about the project as a whole, pursuant to that scope that you've reviewed, What do you think the turnaround on some initial opinions from your office would be? A month?
No, I would say a couple weeks.
So,
And I can call
That-
Phil and yell at him and tell him I need it tomorrow, right?
Or I can call
Yeah.
him and yell at him and tell him
Yeah.
I need it tomorrow.
Well, I guess
but
my
that
issue.
would expedite it.
Yeah.
Just, in my opinion, 5,500 is not a significant amount to deposit to get that done, at least to have him review the current information, be able to advise the board through Wayne.
Mhm.
And if that's the case, we could be here on August 5th talking about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that is definitely something I understand you've had constituents, people you represent, this is your community. You had 20 people from the neighborhood, very emotional, come up here. And I know you got to do your due diligence and thoroughly look at everything, but, you know, from a traffic impact portion, and I'm not the engineer, that's why I hire people and engineers to do my work, but, you know, in the big picture, looking back at this, and obviously I have the viewpoint of the person that's trying to get this approved, but, you know, that light's coming no matter what. There's an existing issue that the neighbors already have perceived in their head, no matter what. The impact of our store has been properly represented by the trip generations, and, you know, we have the data, we know how many people come to a supermarket, and typically at what times they do come. I don't think that our store is going to be a problem, and that's why I'm not, you know, objecting to having another traffic engineer look at it. I just want to make sure that this doesn't get like a can kicked down the road and we continue to keep looking at it. I'm okay. You know, I'll get the check to the town tomorrow. We can, you know, look at the scope briefly. I'm sure it's fine. We can hire Phil. We can have Phil take a look at it for you. So you guys have some data that you can collectively use in the future. And also if a resident has a question, you can share that data with them. And, you know, I will go back to Hannaford and see if, you know, they would object, and I don't think they will. If we can put a no left-hand turns for trucks when they come out of the store, so we focus everything back to the light, so we don't, you know, fun. Appreciate you guys working with us on this.
I don't have a problem with anything you said,
Okay.
to be honest with you. I understand your position. I think the board understands your position. But like you said, we have an obligation to address the issues regarding the residents' response
Absolutely.
to it. So,
We only get one shot at this.
Mhm.
So I think that it behooves us to make sure that we have all the data that we need and that we've considered all the issues.
Understood.
Okay?
Mhm.
And as I understand it, one of the things that will be analyzed is not generically traffic on Hoosick Road. This is an issue the town's been dealing with for many years and probably many years to come. This is project specific, and in particular, potential traffic impacts along Lord, Duncan, and in the neighborhood.
Mhm.
And the issue of potential cut-through traffic and how can that be addressed? And those are some of the things that
Yeah.
we'll get
The
thoughts on.
scope includes, you know, review of your methodology and how you came up with your projections. I did fill them in pretty extensively on where we think that traffic generation is from the neighborhoods. That was brought up by the board. Not only that neighborhood where Genesee Street is, but North 40. There is another neighborhood off of North Lake up by OLB, who, if they want to avoid Route 7, they also go that way, because there's a guy in my office who grew up in that neighborhood, and he cuts through there. So, and I was pretty specific with Phil about what we wanted to look at. The traffic on Route 7 has been studied to death. We really don't need to analyze traffic on Route 7. It is what it is, and the trip generation of the supermarket, it takes, 5 seconds to look it up in ITE, so that's not a big deal either. And I can help them through it. I'm not gonna just say, here, just look at everything that Elias did and then give me your opinion. It's gonna be a well thought out review of what you did and what the board's concerns are.
Absolutely.
And he's pretty good at turning stuff around. I would say within 2 weeks is not unreasonable for him.
And in particular, the board is in receipt, and it was forwarded to the town board when there's signed petitions saying that Duncan Lane should be closed. That these are things that need to be balanced by the town in connection with this project, and getting that additional independent traffic opinion is going to be helpful for
Okay.
this board and ultimately potentially the town board. This board doesn't have any jurisdiction over regulating the town road. That'd be a town board issue.
Mhm.
But we want to be able to have an adequate record if this board does think the town board should consider certain traffic mitigation issues. That could be signage, it could be one way, it could be weight limits, things like that. Having that record is going to be helpful.
Okay, so the process then will be, you will get Walt, and yes, just send it to Walt, because that's where most of the communication, like a copy of that.
Yep.
And then I'll get a check hand delivered to
Chuck Olin,
Chuck.
Yeah.
Chuck likes cash usually, but I'll bring a check.
Chuck's probably a good
We'll
thing for the
we'll try to
record.
expedite this as quickly as possible, and, again, I understand why you're doing it, the emotion of the planning board hearing that night, and again, I think it was localized. I think it's very emotional, but I want to make sure that everybody here is comfortable with the decision once they do go to vote, for the approval or whatever for the project, so. We can do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just one thing, if possible, Wayne, would you also be able to start the seeker determination process in these next 3 weeks before the meeting to kind of coincide with the traffic mitigation?
We can go through the EAF and identify the magnitude of the impacts and start that process. We kind of already know what the impacts are and get that started. So I'll go through the EAF and I'll coordinate with Andy on the seeker stuff. I can't say that it'll be complete, but it can be like a concurrent.
Yeah, that work
I
can
just
get
didn't want it
done.
to fall behind this
Yeah,
traffic.
I'm
If
not
we
gonna
can kind
do
of
it, I'm
work
not gonna
together
wait
with
till,
it.
all the issues
Right.
are resolved and then, yes.
Based on the review of the record thus far and the planning board deliberations, obviously key issues here, traffic with the sub issues of the truck traffic for the fill work. Ultimately, potential traffic impacts of post-construction, stormwater, drainage. Lighting to a degree, yes, but that traffic and stormwater drainage issues are, if I'm speaking correctly, those are two significant issues that,
We're still working out some of the details on the stormwater.
If you have anything else,
Yeah.
I'm available.
Yep, we had a meeting with Bill to go over some of his comments, Bradley. We're, us as the TDE and Bill as the stormwater coordinator, we're trying to get all on the same page so that when we present it to you, we're not gonna keep conflicting back and forth. We're gonna come together in consensus of what we feel that
Yeah. And I
is the best
said
solution.
I'm available.
And we'll work with you,
Over it.
let's find the best solution, it's not, we're not, trying to beat you over the head with it, but.
Could I make one comment on the truck traffic? I noticed that you were directing all the traffic to take a right, which I understand that. But as it exits, are you implying that it will go all the way down to 10th Street?
Tractor trailers?
Yeah, that's Route 40, isn't it?
Yeah.
Tractor trailer ain't gonna make that turn there. Coming down Hoosick Street to go up 10th.
If everybody sits at the stop
Not like-
bar the way they're supposed to, it should. Nobody ever does, they always creep past the stop
Well,
bar.
there's not enough clearance. Well, North Lake Avenue is way restricted, that's restricted, I think, to 6 tons or something.
it's pretty low.
You can't use that route.
I mean, that's just
As
an
far as turning
observation.
the trailer there, yeah, that's a tough turn.
That's a tough turn to make with a tractor trailer, so. How did that, was this reviewed by Valeni or?
Yes,
They said that they were gonna do it that way.
they gave me that route.
Correct.
They're using all 10 axle streets then.
All right.
Might have to pull
Is there any,
six days.
is there any other options as far as fill coming from any other area?
This is the plan as of right now.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that's the closest gravel bank. It has the type of material that we want. And, you know, obviously with trucking costs, distance is a huge thing, but I mean, I can always double check.
All
I
right.
don't know if there's anything closer.
Where's it coming from?
Millennium's up,
Scarecrow. To mechanics, so.
River Road, is that where that is? River Road.
It's
Is that
it's
beyond
on
Plains?
67, I think.
Is that beyond Plains?
It's on 67 between 40 and the river.
How many yards are you anticipating to bring in?
It's on the right, I think, up there.
The yardage, right, the estimated yardage is on that, the number of trucks per day, on that pamphlet. That's attached to the public hearing, like 50,000, 55. So it'll be like a 2-month process, Monday through Friday.
Okay, is there any action that we have to do as a board to,
Just a formal motion to retain Colliers for traffic engineering consultants with an initial, if I can state the motion and then someone can make it.
yeah, okay,
Motion to retain Colliers Engineers, is that the name? Wayne?
Yeah, Colliers Engineering and Design.
For purposes of traffic consultation pursuant to the proposal dated July 7th with an estimated retainer amount of $5,500 to be deposited by the applicant.
would someone like to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll say.
Is there any further discussion on that? All those in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? All right, I think we're all set there.
I think when you're doing the traffic study, you ought to be looking at the existing stuff on Duncan Lane, the U-Haul and the Takeaway Creamery, and that stuff shouldn't, I don't know, I don't hang out in that neighborhood. I assume stories that the trucks go out through the neighborhood, that those trucks should be coming up Lord Ave and to the light, and what impact that will have. I mean, you may get a few more cars, but you might get a few less trucks. I'm sure Safeway gets deliveries because they don't make all the stuff they sell. So those trucks should be coming in on Lord Avenue.
Well, these guys aren't gonna be doing a study, they're just gonna be reviewing the study, correct, Wayne?
Correct, but they need as much background as they can to do the review.
All right.
And you said that Valeni has seen this? They understand the route that they're gonna take?
They've actually provided it.
Nuts.
Well, when they first came in, they were kind of, and we said, well, we don't want them crossing traffic. So they came back and said they were going to go down to Route 40 and go out that way. I mean, there's no other way. I mean, it's either that or you come out and you go up to 142. So it's, you know.
I can't imagine what that's gonna do to the traffic situation at Oakwood Avenue or 10th Street, whatever you wanna call it. And who's it?
Well,
The one thing I will say is that's not in the town of Brunswick.
Well, number one, it's not in the town of Brunswick, and just for the board, having dealt with that issue on a number of occasions, these are existing public roads designed to handle anticipated traffic. And that's really a traffic compliance issue. It's not whether it should be allowed or not. It's there and available for both passenger and truck use. There's an issue about turning radius safety. That's an issue for compliance. It's not an issue for whether it should be allowed or not.
Yeah, there is 2 lanes going in the northerly direction on 10th Street, so There's a little bit of room to make a turn.
There's a lot of trucks, a lot of Thames trucks go up Oakwood every day. I mean, if you come over that bridge, most of them tractor trailers are taking a left as soon as they get off the bridge. So it's a state highway. I mean, not 40 is not all a state highway, but part of it's what, a county road or something.
It's a state route overlay on a city road and then county.
Right. But this is what the Valeni provided as the solution to the problem of crossing traffic coming out on the 7th. So,
All right. Any other questions?
I've got one more for
Go
Mr.
for it.
Gilchrist.
Yes.
Have you touched base with the town attorney? I spoke with him, I want to say maybe a couple of weeks ago regarding the public hearing for the sewer district extension. He said he was going to reach out to you to discuss that.
He did. I can tell you he's away on vacation this week, and I should be having further discussions with him next week.
Okay,
All right.
appreciate it.
So I understand that, yeah, that's
Okay,
not forgotten.
Yep.
So that we'll have the procedure for that as well. In general, I'm sure he went over this with you, how the town has handled this in the past is, I won't call it a tag along, but the process to create or extend a special district, sewer or water district generally is not done until this board has acted on the project to determine whether the project is the project and whether the limits of the proposed district are final. Then they'll move forward with it. That doesn't necessarily mean that things can't happen while the town board process on extending the sewer district is ongoing. Okay? Generally, that follows the planning board process. Certainly part of this will be, and you may have done this already, but I'll raise it nonetheless, is coordination with the city of Troy. Have you had any discussions
Yes.
with Troy? Okay.
Yeah.
And they have run the model?
yes.
Okay.
And
That
we've been
usually is,
dealing with Mr. Bradley on determining the scope
got it,
to
Good.
meet that requirement. Yes.
perfect. That's usually more of a hiccup or a trip than the town procedure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, then we will put you on the agenda for our next meeting on the 5th of August. Great, okay. You're welcome. Okay, that concludes our regular agenda. Under new business, we received a, where is it? Okay, we received a waiver of subdivision for Cynthia Wilson. And we can review that. This is under new business, so we're going to review it, and if there's any questions, we can get those answered, and this item will be put on the agenda for our next meeting.
You have to renegade on that?
You have I would assume that Cynthia Wilson is not here.
Who's that?
She is not here.
Okay. You want to just review this with us then, Chuck, real quick?
Monday, was that you have one of the smaller, harder ones to read. Look at this one first.
Okay.
A little better. What they're looking at is in adding this parcel onto here.
Okay.
The septic system for this is right in here. And that actually, if they add that parcel.
Okay. And everybody, there's a small 0.19 acre.
Yeah, and if we try to lay them out so you guys could share. Emil, you got the big one, you want to open that up so Kevin can see it a little better? You got a big one?
I want to take this.
I've been over there.
No, I didn't.
Bring it into this.
Oh, okay, you're.
I was
Is there a new map?
And this
This
is,
is a
this
1994.
obviously isn't a building, that's a lot.
No.
adjustment.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, and there's a septic
Is it
system
accurate?
in here. that just trying to get compliant.
Yeah. The middle lot was originally owned all three, and there's a trailer on there.
This is septic.
Cindy bought the lot to the left,
It's a
built the house,
pole barn.
and on the lot to the right,
So
there's a
she wants
house.
to give that to them.
So he's trying to get enough land, I guess, for a the septic system to correct it or whatever.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Was it drawn up then and then just never done anything with it?
It's really odd that it's a,
There's no revision date on that, which kind of surprises me. Yet I think this portion was done by the original surveyor, and we really should have.
Does
And
say
a
map
revision
revised
date.
July 6, 2021.
what's that?
Just above the title block on the right side,
Gotcha, right here.
it says map revised July 6, 2021.
Okay.
Very small.
You ain't
You
kidding.
can't
Yeah, you're
see
not
it on
gonna be
that.
able to see that.
Don't they usually have a revision block?
Yeah, there's a
Yeah.
revision block and a new date and stuff. Do we know who did the revision? I don't want to get technical here, but you can't amend a stamped plan.
I would assume it is the same, Mr. Wiley Johnson.
Well, that ought to get, I
What
think,
is- what is
confirmed
the
on the record.
The surveyor on here is Wiley, so
Yeah, okay, so.
same guy that originally did
Because
it.
otherwise it's a violation of the education law.
Right. Bring Mr. Bradley out of the grave.
Did you see this thing?
When did that show me that? Is that the deed?
That's true.
Well, it's basically a narrative.
We need a ag data statement on.
There's no other house, right? It's an existing, both of those are already an existing residential use?
Yes.
I mean, we're not creating a new building lot, this is another lot line? I wouldn't,
Pass
I
that,
wouldn't
I'm
think
just-
so.
pass that over to.
No house on this lot, right?
Those are generally intended,
Just asking.
generally intended to be noticed for non-agricultural use within 500 feet of an
There is a house here.
ag operation. This is already a non-agricultural use.
So it's on that, on that pad?
I just don't want to get to the
Big trailer
finish
or
line
no?
and have to
Yeah.
pull them up.
It's a regular home, and then she's got a garage, there's a garage there too.
I think I have this. right?
So this map is not very accurate.
No,
How many
Yeah,
big,
I have that.
big maps are there?
Thank you.
There are only four. And we gave,
Someone need a map?
One more right here, you can see.
I don't
I
need it.
gave mine to Russ.
Here.
He's working on giving it back.
Yes.
I mean, we're gonna put
it shows
this
the
on the
foundation,
agenda
but
for
not
next
the
year.
house.
Okay.
City has a house.
And that's probably much what they did this for, and what they gave that to the building department.
So where do you think this alleged septic system is?
And as he modified that, probably
Well,
somewhere
he
down
said
here.
it
to make
kind
it
of
forward. Yeah,
bounces
it may say
around
the
in
date
here.
for when they did the foundation location.
I think that they
Yeah, I see that.
probably has a setback issue.
was revised in July of
So they want to give, they want to pursue that by correcting it by, this people want to get a piece from her.
Right.
that she's with.
So,
This is, once again, is
So why do you want to put this
not
up?
line adjustment.
Why do you want?
So where's the septic system for the mobile home?
Okay. We are going to put this on our agenda. Is there any questions about that?
Maybe they
All right.
need to increase the size of it. The question was why they did that, and I think in the narrative, they said they can, so they can have a bigger yard.
Okay.
So this is her driveway to get to her house? This is the driveway to get to the mobile home?
And something else there, what's that?
There's a garage there. I thought Cindy had one over there by her house.
Oh, really?
Is there any other new business? Chuck?
I have one other thing. That's something that the folks may be coming in to see you, and that's regarding a request from Park East Ventures that we spoke about the fill.
Okay.
We didn't want to say anything in front of the folks. They are proposing to work on that site again. That site did have a sunset clause on it when it was approved in 2009, so they have to come back in front of us and, well, it was due up in 2014, so. And that's if they were like to do a little more work on the site, we're gonna have to have them come back in and do another site plan approval, see what's changed regarding the environmental laws since the approval in 2009.
Okay, just to get everybody up to speed here, I don't know if a lot of people realize what that is.
Dave was on.
I was on the board.
And you were, yes.
This was a project.
Yeah, they're gonna move a mountain over there, right?
Yeah,
I
Yeah,
remember-
Kev,
I
you were
remember
there too, yeah. Just a small portion of the mountain now, just 45,000 cubic yards.
this was a project
Roughly what
by
Hancock
Reifenberg.
needs.
As you go up Route 7, and you go past, well, you
The
go
new
right up here,
Sunoco, the new Sunoco station.
Right.
the new Sunoco station, that hill back there was going to be removed.
The hill to the left of the Sunoco station?
Yep.
They're gonna take that out.
They were going to take it out and then they were going to put like a commercial
This, an office park, yeah.
an office park through there.
Strip mall.
And obviously, this was done in 2005.
2009, it was.
Nine.
February of 2009.
Right when the market went off. crazy.
So there is rumors that they would want to partially take that hill off and maybe possibly make it as an option for material fill for the Hammerford. This is Reifenberg. You know,
Makes sense.
I'll give you just, and I did talk to Chuck on this, and we have to have further discussions with Reifenberg's representatives. The way this generally works, and the way it worked in 2009, is there was a full site plan and construction project. And it was to take the hill down, the entirety of that hill, and the end project, once it was down to grade principally, even with Hoosick Road, was to build an office park. And the board reviewed the entire project, and ultimately the entire project was granted site plan approval, subject to a bunch of conditions. One of them was the 5-year sunset, that if nothing was done within 5 years, they needed to resubmit and come back to the planning board for review. But there were also a number of conditions dealing with DEC and DOT. The issue with DEC is, and if memory serves me right, it was close to 400,000 yards of material coming off the site. Generally, that volume of material needs a mining permit regardless of whether the material is good or not. And here, the proposal was, we don't need a mining permit because the construction exemption would apply. This would be removal of material to aid on-site construction. The on-site construction would be constructing the office park. When you remove the construction project, you also remove the construction exemption. So if the proposal were to be to come in and get roughly 50,000 yards, and that's the project, it's no longer in conjunction with a construction project. It's a removal project. And that potentially does require a mining permit from DEC because of the volume of material to come off the site. And so there's still some discussion to be had on whether removing 50,000 yards now without an underlying construction project is viable. But we'll see.
wasn't there a lot of discussion about the quality of the material that they could?
As I
only-
understand it, it's very poor, a
Yeah,
lot of clay.
They couldn't use it for like roads or anything
Right.
like that. But,
Yep.
They considered it, that it's just for the fill of the lot, the 6-foot lift that they're doing across that site, that they will be able to, put it in and lift and get the right compaction for it. It was described as clay, and with some shell. They did do some borings in there. They've got the whole litany of stuff from all of the meetings back in 08 and 09.
so I mean, this adds a little bit more to the the discussion that we had at the end of the Hannaford project about the truck routes and, and all that stuff. There's something else going on that may impact that whole thing.
I think that's gonna take more than 8 weeks. When you're talking 70 trucks a day, you're talking about 6 to 8 minutes a trip.
Then they can.
A truck going in there every 6 to 8 minutes? No, not
Yeah,
really.
a whole lot of
And
trucks.
That's like a
You wouldn't be able to get the trucks to even coordinate within the site.
Right.
In 6, 8
Get,
minutes.
and get them unloaded and the
It's
material
gonna take a
moved.
lot more than 8 months, or they're gonna have to use larger trucks or more trucks or something. That's a tremendous quantity of trucks per day.
Well, especially they're pulling it down from Scottsdale. I mean,
Yeah.
and you got 30 trucks going each way on the road. You know,
Yeah.
Right, so we may see that we discussed this today and we're under the opinion that if they come back, it's gonna be under new business.
better grease up that truck.
It's a whole different application and everything like that. So, anything else? Any other surprises you have up your sleeve?
That is it.
Okay, and let's just review the agenda real quickly. Harbor Freight, obviously, that's where they're gonna have their public hearing scheduled at 7 o'clock. Lord Avenue is going to be back, and the Cynthia Wilson waiver of subdivision.
Russ, I will not be here on the 5th.
Okay? Duly noted. I believe Linda told me that she wasn't going to be here. Do you know anything about that? She on vacation?
not directly. Okay. She's on vacation.
I don't have anything else. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? All right.